Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. We are here to stop the cycle of sugar high romance, discover your worth, and find true love. And when I say find true love, I mean finding the love of your life, but also finding that love for yourself. Discovering your worth and value also helps you fall in love with yourself, which can we all just take a collective sigh of, wow, is it hard to love yourself? I remember people saying like, why would it be so hard? I remember someone said that and I was thinking, how is this easy? Thank God there are so many amazing thought leaders and people that do this deep work that can teach us that why this is difficult and why we struggle and why everybody has trauma. And so I don't have a lot of time actually to record this, but I just felt this surge of inspiration to tell you a couple of different things. So I've continued to sing the praises of Dr. Nicole, LePera's book. It's a link that's probably going to be in so many podcasts upcoming because it's so powerful. It's like if you can't afford therapy, even if you can't afford therapy, like I put any therapist up against this work. Like good luck matching the aha moments that this amazing woman has put together. However, you could use an amazing therapist and actually be so much more productive in therapy by combining this content. So one of the things that I want you to be aware of, and I've got her book, so I'm apologizing for the rattling of paper behind the scenes, but I want to just help you understand something if you don't read the book or if you're not a reader. Her audio version is a little, I love an audio book, but I have to say it is very monotone, so it's a little bit difficult to listen to, so I chose to read the book because it's so freaking good, so don't judge it by the audio. However, we all have experienced trauma. And I remember thinking about, a lot of us think about trauma. I was actually going to say, I remember thinking about, how I was going to write this in my book. And trauma seems like such an extreme thing to say. Like, everybody doesn't experience trauma? Because trauma seems like abuse or a major car accident or somebody who's gone to war and they have PTSD. So none of us want to really associate ourselves with trauma. But trauma can be a parent that didn't see you, hear you, or make you feel like you are, to be seen and heard and understood are the three things that we are craving the most. To be seen, to be heard, and to be understood. So when I think about when you're with a gumball guy and you have this pattern of attracting attention-seeking men, there is the illusion that you're seen and that you're heard, but it's only when you're getting them high. So I would love to someday if I can have Dr. LePera on this podcast and we can discuss how the victims, and I believe the Gumball Guys are the victims too. So I'm speaking to you as the woman that dates these guys, but I, don't think that I'm not also thinking about how can we help these Gumball Guys that do want to be helped. I think that there is a path out if they want to seek the help. And I also want to give you the information to say, is this a guy that can be helped? Is there any, I don't even want to say potential because yeah, there's potential in everyone, but not everybody is willing to do the work, right? So there are guys that talk about doing the work. I had an ex that actually went to therapy and could talk about doing the work. But as I had been more advanced in my therapy, I could listen to him speak and go, it sounds nice. And I'm very happy for him that he's making progress. But I could also see that there was not potential for a long-term relationship. And let me just tell you, just actually being in a relationship where I am seen, I am heard, I am loved, like really loved, it's so eye-opening to me how I actually can say with certainty now that I never had the real thing before, and not even close. Not to say, if any of my ex-boyfriends are listening to this, which they probably are not, but not to say that it wasn't, that we didn't care for each other. It wasn't like it was, all superficial by any means, but I just didn't understand the depth that would be required to do this thing long term. I mean, when my love says, hey, maybe we should call your mom and sister and see what they're doing, or what's your dad been up to? Maybe we should go hang out with him for a little bit. I just think like, what is happening right now? Like, it's beyond, and then when you've dated Gumball Guys, you're like, yeah, right. You really like, what's the motive, and then there just isn't a motive. So it's like, wow, okay. You're just proactively asking to hang out with my parents because, we haven't seen them in maybe a couple weeks or something. It's just stuff like that where, things that you need to do, we need to spend time with our family. We need to spend time with our friends. He's the extrovert. I'm the introvert. So he's always like helping me get out and be more social, which is so funny because I always felt like I was the more social one with dating Gumball Guys. And I was, because usually they were very socially awkward. So I'm not awkward socially, although sometimes I think I am, but I'm not awkward socially, but I'm definitely more introverted. Like I can stay home for a long period of time. Like, quarantine was definitely not a punishment for me. So, but for him, he's the extrovert. And so I just realized, wow, this is what it's like to have balance. This is what it's like to have depth. This is what it's like to have love. And when you have had trauma, though, so what I wanted to draw your attention to is that when we have had trauma, so trauma is even when a parent does not see us or hear us. And it doesn't mean that we have bad parents. When I think about my parents, when they went through their divorce, there were a lot of times, there were periods of time I did not feel seen or heard, and it did damage, and it was traumatizing. Now, as an adult, I can look and I can see what was going on. However, it created deep beliefs in me, and I didn't understand that those were traumas. It was creating deep beliefs in me, which I have journaled about this. I have done therapy about this, around confidence and feeling loved and loving myself. So I'm switching around because I'm grabbing this other notebook. And so I came across this podcast with Ed Mylett, and he was interviewing one of my favorite brain specialists. Her name is Dr. Caroline Leaf. She talks really fast. She gives a lot of information. Ed Mylett and she has her own podcast as well. So I actually tried to listen to it at half speed because she speaks so fast and she's saying so much. And I still need to go back through that podcast and listen to it again. So I'll link it here in the show notes. However, and it's crazy that her last name is Leaf, because she taught me, and I remember hearing this years ago, but she never explained it like this. And she actually has another book coming out about this very topic, how our brains are messy, our thoughts are messy. All these, when you think about all of the traumas, so I want you to, maybe it's like lowercase trauma. It doesn't have to be massive trauma, although a lot of us have experienced those too. So any trauma where you were bullied, you felt left out, you felt like you were not being seen or heard, or you felt shame. There are so many different levels of trauma, whether you were maybe verbally abused or physically abused. But basically, trauma creates the fight or flight response. But she actually added another response, which I related to much more. Fight, flight, freeze, actually two more. Fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. So the freezing is you don't do anything. And I have found this is sort of a default thing that I do. If I'm getting ready to write, or I can clean my house, do all my laundry, and then I freeze. Like, why am I freezing? Sometimes I'm just not able to move forward or take steps. Like, why am I stalling right now? It's a trauma response. Or if you are in a position where you just fawning, you just give in to whatever is around you. You don't fight for what you want, or you don't stand up for yourself. You just give in. So those are all trauma responses. And so kind of related to that, but not a direct correlation, but I'm not the expert to go into this. So I want you to read this book, and I'll try to paraphrase, because as I've been looking at all these trauma responses, so forgive me because I'm scattered a little bit, but I've been reading this book and I've been thinking, oh my gosh, okay, I didn't realize that as I was going through therapy and as I was journaling, and writing down the trauma, how I felt about the trauma, how I felt about the past, how do I feel about it now, what's going on in my body. Then Dr. Leaf was on the Ed Mylett Show. And I've known Dr. Caroline Leaf, read other books, and she taught that in the brain, we actually have, when we think thoughts, they become physical. Like, you could actually touch them. It's microscopic, but if you could look under a microscope and watch your brain think, it would be creating thought trees. So think of it as the thought starts with a trunk, and then as you think of different things related to that, there are branches, and then there are leaves of thoughts, but they are physically formed. Is that not crazy? I just think it's like blew my mind that when people say thoughts are things, they actually are physical things that are happening in the brain. So then, that's not even the most mind-blowing thing. So then she said, do this exercise. Highly recommend you do this exercise, especially those of us that have anxiety or depression. You know how when you feel anxiety, and she really got my attention with one of her posts about the trauma body, and how it says the trauma body is activated when we are experiencing the past in the present moment. Our physiology changes as the nervous system is activated, hormones like cortisol are released, and the body prepares for fight or flight. When we are in the trauma body, we have no access to logic, reason, or rational understanding. This is why it often looks like we are overreacting. After the trauma body is activated, we often feel shame, remorse, or disgust around our behavior. We cope with these shame cycles in unhealthy ways like drinking or drugs, which only creates deeper levels of shame. You know you're in your trauma body when this looks like the inability to form clear thoughts, clear communication of what you're feeling, the desire to escape, avoid, or run away. I'm totally a runaway kind of a person. And being in a healthy relationship, sometimes I've gotten in my trauma body, and I feel myself running away. And like one time I was in it, and I ran away to the garage, and I just sat in the car, and I was like, what are you doing? You are totally in your own. This is like Melissa creating her own. I shouldn't say that, because I've realized too that I'll make fun of myself. Like, oh my God, how ridiculous was that? But I'm really trying to acknowledge, like, what is this? What is going on that I will have all this anxiety, and then it will just build and build, and my brain will just flood. Is it exactly what she's writing? And it was like, oh my God, this has happened to me a few times where I'm like, where am I running? Where am I going? I woke up in the middle of the night and I had anxiety and I couldn't sleep. And I was just like, so in combination with Dr. LePera, Dr. Leaf gets on this podcast with Ed Mylett, and she's like, okay, your thoughts are trees in your brain. What are those trees? So all these trees, imagine this massive forest in your brain. And she said, usually we are down in each tree. We're thinking those thoughts. We're looking at the trees from the forest floor. But she said, what we need to do is get in a chopper out. Picture that, getting in the helicopter. The blades are turning. Now you're going up above, and you're looking over your thought forest, your brain and all the trees. And what does that look like? What are those trees? So take out a pen or a pencil, whatever, and a piece of paper, And I wrote down 4 trees, but every time I have scary thoughts or nervous thoughts, even I still have my full-time job. And so I will worry about, oh my God, I sent that email. And then what if this person says this? And then now I'm sitting like, wow, what did I just create in my head that I think might be happening? So draw a straight line and then draw branches coming off of the tree. And then I could write, I feel like that email makes me look stupid. Next branch, that they're going to judge me. That means they think that I'm dumb. That means I'm not respected. They're going to tell my boss. So what does that mean? It means I feel like they think I'm dumb. They don't respect my work, or they think that I don't know what I'm doing. So I tried to look at each tree and say, what is the main message when I go climb up this tree in my mind? Because we do think these same things over and over again. So there you are. Are you sitting on the branch of I'm not enough? And that branch is the tree that also says, I'm too fat, I'm ugly, I hate my nose, my butt's big, I hate my thighs. Like, is it the tree of body shame? Is it the tree of I'm not enough? Is it the tree I'm never going to get married because of this, and this? Is it the tree of I'm never going to have kids? And so I literally looked at the categories, and I will just share them with you because, that's how I am. I'm an oversharer. But I will scare myself into thinking my relationship won't work out. But on this side of it, it's so wonderful that the idea of losing it is so terrifying to me. So then I will go down creating false realities. And what I've realized is when we create false realities, it's the fight or flight. I'm preparing for it's a survival. This is if I'm going to experience this, I've got to figure out how I'm going to survive it. So I've created these trees that I go hang out in to figure out, okay, this doesn't work out. What are we going to do? And so there's that. And then we can create grooves where you keep climbing up that tree. You're creating more branches. It gets thicker. It gets more developed. And so if we keep going there, that tree grows. This is freaking crazy, isn't it? Because it's actually like a physical thing in your brain. So I can get myself thinking, oh my God, what if things don't work out? Or I have the I'm not enough tree, which has a lot of branches, or that I'm an imposter. Although in Gumball Love, I have to say, the imposter syndrome, what do I know about relationships? Although this is the one area I don't feel as much of an imposter because I've been doing this for over 10 years and I know my stuff works. But in the beginning of Gumball Love, I really didn't know. And I was like, I'm a freaking mess. Who's going to listen to me? However, those of you that have been with me for a while, you've seen me make progress because I don't give up. I just keep going. I keep learning. I keep digging in, and I share that process with you. And as I've seen people I really admire and respect go through this process and they share their journey, I've realized, you know what, so that thought tree is not as, I bet you that's maybe it's a tiny little, maybe it's down to a little baby tree now because I don't go there. And guess what? When you don't go to those trees and you don't think about them, they disappear. The branches go away. The physical cells that are making up that thought tree go away. So my other thought tree is I'm dumb, I'm weird, or not interesting. And I just look at that, look at all the thoughts that create that belief. And it's this is so dumb. Why am I? And then I told my boyfriend, I'm like, my thoughts are trash. This is junk. This is junk thinking. But I'll tell you, being able to see it from that helicopter view. And she said, look at the trees where there's it's dark. You have dark spots of trees. You have you can go back, you can listen to the podcast, how she explains it. But what does the forest look like? What trees are you hanging out in? And looking at the traumas that created those trees, those beliefs, and unraveling that, I'm telling you what, it is so liberating. That's why I just jumped on here. I had to and I'll go into more depth because I want to read more, but I can't even finish the book, but I have to tell you before I'm too excited to wait to process it all, but I just wanted to share. So do the exercise, the thought trees. What are you thinking about? Think about the periods in your life where you did not feel seen or heard. I'm going to just flip through here. And there's also so many things you can do. I've been learning more about breath work, which I kind of rolled my eyes about, like meditation, because I didn't really understand why I was doing either one. However, now I get meditation, and I just have to figure out a way to do it that works for me. But when you're in those anxiety thoughts and you're in that tree thinking all of the things that aren't true, that's when you need something like meditation to ground you and get you out of that tree. So it's like, okay, I'm being more present, or sometimes it's just for me, like touching my dogs or going outside or going for a walk, or I don't know. I'm working on finding my recipe of what works, because, you know, people say those things like go for a walk or have a cup of tea, but it's got to be the thing that's like, bam, this works for me. And so I'm working on finding that recipe. So anyway, I have a meeting I have to run. So I was like, I don't know if I had time to do this, but I hope this helps, and I'll get into it more on a new episode. Until the next time, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.